Test. All right. So we got a few more folks taking their seats. We have a lot to cover today, so we're going to go ahead and get started basically right on time. I'm a supply chain person, so we start these things almost to the minute. So thank you everyone for joining us here today. This is Extend Microsoft Copilot using Copilot Studio. There's been a huge amount of announcements today. We're thrilled to spend a bit of time going a little bit deeper into some of those announcements. My name is Mike Bassani. I'm a product leader in our Power Platform organization, specifically in Dataverse, which is the infrastructure that powers the Power Platform and a lot of Microsoft Copilot Studio. And with me is Jeff.
I'm Jeff Derstadt. I am one of the engineering directors in Microsoft Copilot Studio, and welcome again to Build 2024. Hope you all are enjoying this fine summer Seattle day.
It's a nice day to be inside for sure. So let's go ahead and get started. There's a few things we want to take you through today, and our agenda has effectively 3 acts to it, if you will. The first piece is just a level set for many of you. This is how Power Platform and M365 or Microsoft 365, you'll hear me use them and Jeff used them interchangeably a little bit today, work together to create the true Copilot extensibility. Then we're going to talk a little bit about extending Microsoft Copilot and some demos of how our partner ecosystem, as well as some of our customers, have done that. We're really excited to make sure that you've seen the progression since Ignite. And then finally, we're going to talk about security and governance and publishing Copilot extensions, what it means for you in the room, whether you're a software vendor or an individual organization, to take some of the things that you're going to see today and use them in your line of business. So if you're not familiar with these 2 logos yet, you're going to be very shortly. The one on the left, Copilot for M365, this is the big brother. This is effectively Copilot across Microsoft. This is the future of modern work. And so emails, PowerPoints, everything is stored inside the Microsoft Graph. And it's a really important surface area for us. Because as organizations, you can think about all this information that's stored just through our standard conversations, and that's available to us through the Copilot for M365. While it's very impressive, we know that as enterprises, you have information that is outside of the graph, living in different systems, and that's really where Copilot Studio comes in. It might be the newer kid, but it is the home for automation and extensibility for the Microsoft Copilot. We're going to show you some examples of how we bring that to life. Copilot Studio is fully backed by the Power Platform. So if you're familiar with Power Automate, Power Apps, some of the existing Power Platform infrastructure, if you have information that's stored in Dataverse today, you're going to get all of that goodness by default inside of Copilot Studio. And this will be the place that you and your organization can go to extend Microsoft Copilot in ways that are most specific for your organization. This is not about making a specific cookie-cutter Copilot. Copilot Studio allows you that extensibility that represents the business needs that you have in your organization. You heard Satya talk about Copilot extensions and Copilot connectors. So what does that really mean and how do we represent that? Jeff and I are going to spend a bit of time talking and unpacking how Copilot extensions can work for you. So if you've got the Microsoft Copilot as that little nucleus there, Copilot extensions wrap around that. And Copilot extensions have kind of 2 vectors they operate in. They operate on knowledge and they operate on actions. We're going to spend a bit of time off the jump on knowledge, and then we're going to go over to actions in just a second. Why is knowledge important? Well, you've seen the progression over the past few years of ChatGPT and public available knowledge. And general knowledge is great. It's kind of fun at the dinner table to have those conversations. But if you're an enterprise and you're trying to address customer concerns, your customer concerns, answering them with general knowledge is simply not sufficient. You need to have enterprise knowledge. This is the information that allows you to address your customers in the way that they're used to being addressed with the information that's pertinent to them. Their order IDs, their prior ticket history, any other information that you might find inside a CRM or an ERP. And by design, if you're already a Power Platform user, you've got Dataverse tables, or you're using Sales or Service or one of the other Dynamics applications, you've got access to this as well. And so it's really about the marriage of general knowledge and enterprise knowledge as kind of that foundational x-axis of knowledge. And the first kind of takeaway that we'll kind of bring to the group here is your AI strategy should be grounded in your data strategy. So as you're thinking about your data and where it is, that is going to inform your AI strategy. But there's also actions. And actions are really kind of the next wave. They're the ability for you to take an action inside of something like Microsoft Copilot and then actually have it affect change in the source system. But not just the source system of the graph. You can actually take an action and affect change in a source system that is non-Microsoft. And that's through 3 different vectors. You can do that through connectors. And they're primarily the kind of send and response. And we're very lucky today that we have over 1,000 Power Platform connectors already live out of the box for you to go and hook into different applications, ServiceNow, DocuSign, what have you, and pull that information in. There's plugins where you can actually go and append those connectors and add descriptions and details. Jeff will talk a little bit about how you can use those. Think about Power Automate flows, creating changes in source systems and running. And then you have copilots, which is actually the ability for you to create your own copilot and have it interact with that Microsoft Copilot using plugins and connectors. And so you think about the staircase, if you will, between connectors being readily available, plugins being a slight modification of those, and then kind of copilots as the 3rd step in that stool. And these really all together represent the full basket suite of kind of Copilot extensions. We're going to talk about Copilot connectors and Copilot extensions, but they are effectively 3 things. They are the ability for you to take actions. They are the ability for you to take knowledge as one bucket. That's that x-axis. They are ability for you to create in clicks or code. It's kind of your second branch, if you will. And they exist as something that you can publish, not only to yourself, but also other individuals in your organization. And so when you put those 3 pieces together, you get a fantastic suite of extensibility already out of the box available to you and your users to be used inside of the Microsoft Copilot. And so now we've got a bit of an understanding between how Microsoft Copilot, Copilot Studio, and Copilot extensions all work together. Jeff is going to actually break apart a Copilot extension and kind of show you what's inside it.
All right, thanks, Mike. So we've heard a lot about Copilot extensions, so let's take a look behind the scenes at what's inside of a Copilot extension. And it turns out that we've made it so that it's not actually very complicated. In fact, we can represent it as a single chunk of JSON, which is what I'm going to show in the next few slides. But don't worry, you don't have to author this JSON if you don't want. It's just a way to kind of explain the concepts. So when you have a Copilot extension, all Copilot extensions have an ID, and they have a name and a description. And this name and description are something that are for the human. So if I see that extension in Microsoft Copilot in the extension flyout, or if I see it in like the Teams app catalog, that's the name and description I see. So beyond that, we start to get into what does this extension actually do? And the first thing, like Mike was saying, is you can add knowledge and data into that extension. And so here you can see I've added this capabilities section. In this particular case, I've decided to add some SharePoint data into my Copilot extension. And that's just one of many, many kinds of data sources that you can add into your extension. In fact, you can pretty much add any kind of data into your extension. So beyond data are actions. And so actions you can think of as a function or like an API. And in fact, in this particular JSON format, the way that we represent a function, you can see it in this blue box here, is there's an API spec part to what we add. And so you can think of this as like the REST swagger. And so you have a definition of all of your APIs, like your gets and your puts and that sort of thing. And then at the top there, you see another name and description for that particular action. And this name and description, these aren't for humans. And in fact, that description is of particular importance because it's what the Copilot uses to reason about when do I actually need to call this particular action. So in this case, I have this action, check account status for a given customer name. And that description we use to give Copilot to start reasoning about, well, when do I actually need to provide account status? And so if somebody asks about it, maybe I need to bring that data in, it's going to call this particular action. So it's a pretty simple thing. Next, there's some other goodies that you can add into your extension as your extensions get more and more complicated. So you can add custom instructions. So these are things like if you want to set the tone or personality of how your Copilot extension responds, you can tell it, hey, I want you to walk through a set of steps. Or you can tell it things like, hey, prefer to respond in bulleted lists or numbered lists or something like that. And then when people use your extension, you can also provide conversation starters. So these are things to inspire your users with starter prompts as they use Microsoft Copilot. So as you can see, it's not all that complicated to define one of these extensions. And as you're going to hear about across Build, there are a lot of different tools that you're going to see to help you build AI solutions and help to extend Microsoft Copilot. But really the one that we're going to focus on today is Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio, it's a SaaS program, so you can go to a website. And within Copilot Studio, you can build your own Copilot, and you can extend the Microsoft Copilot. And within that experience, you don't have to worry about provisioning any other services. There's nothing else to manage. As you build your Copilots and extensions, you can get analytics on them. You can see how they're doing. You can manage them. You can govern them, all from inside Copilot Studio. But that's just a piece, and a very large piece, of how you extend Copilots. But there's other great tools across Microsoft as well. And this is what you start to see on the other side of the screen around Azure AI Studio. And so these are our PaaS offerings. So low-level, kind of to-the-metal access to your large language models, Azure services, and all of that kind of stuff. And as they're more geared towards pro-code people, but you can build those applications, you can build those functions. And the great thing about this ecosystem is that it's not one or the other. We're peanut butter and jelly here. So everything works together. So if you build something over in Azure AI Studio, if you're hosting it in Azure, you can use that inside Copilot Studio and invoke that as part of your extension. So everything's going to work together and be very composable. And like I said, our focus today is going to be on building Copilot extensions in Copilot Studio.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jeff. And so ultimately, the goal that we want to have is that it's your Copilot, your way. And as you begin to think about some of the different experiences that we're going to show here on the screen in a little bit, the ultimate way that we want you to kind of internalize this is in your organization, what makes the most sense for you? Do connectors make the most sense? Is it better to use Power Automate flows? Is there an opportunity for use conversational AI plugins? There's lots of different examples. We brought them all to bear so that you have ultimately the flexibility and choice. And you're going to see in the next few moments how different partners and different customers have explored the technology and really been creative in using it differently for their organizations or for their customers and, frankly, our shared customers. But it's good to have a little bit of history because things are happening really fast in this space. And in a very short period of time, things can change dramatically. And at Ignite, we launched effectively Copilot Studio with some of these what are now Copilot extensions. And it's great to see the progression and how they've grown and also become more available to you as users who have played around with Copilot Studio. So on the screen you have here, you've got 4 examples of what would have really become kind of the bedrock or the foundation of Copilot extensions inside of Copilot Studio. And you see below that the little modal, which demo God's permitting, you'll see in real code here in just a little bit. And so you have the Power Platform connector. That was the one we talked about. We're actually going out. You're not doing any data migration. This is just simply a send, receive, authenticated call. You've got Power Automate flows. Again, this is a really powerful tool if you haven't used Power Automate to go and create flows and really the home of automation inside of the Power Platform. Conversational AI plugins allow you to have this kind of nested topic experience where you can go and kind of create the path of the conversation. And finally, AI Builder prompts. You've heard a lot about perhaps prompt tuning and prompt engineering. We brought that experience that was at one point in time separated from Copilot Studio directly into the product so that you can have inline ability to edit prompts and now announced at Build the ability for you to actually ground these prompts in Dataverse data. So if you've got information sitting inside of Dataverse or you'd like to bring other information in, you can do that and you can use those grounded prompts to then be surfaced to the experience of the customer. And all of these things can be individually published and consumed inside of M365. Your user will not know the difference. So it's truly a developer choice that we're giving to you and putting into your hands. And while it's great for us to talk about it, maybe let's have a little clip of the ISV community that has already started building inside of Microsoft Copilot Studio today. What you're going to see here is a few different examples of ISVs, or independent software vendors, going and using the connector ecosystem. Pre-built connectors, again, there's over 1,000. They're searching for effectively their own connector that they've either built or authored that existed in Power Platform. They're using that, finding it, and adding descriptions and titles to it. And what you're going to see here with DocuSign, 𝗦𝗲𝗀, Data8, and Zoho is that to the customer, they've effectively turned their previously created Power Platform connector into a plugin that now any M365 Copilot user can turn on at a flick of a switch. And you think about the power that is for our shared customers as we go back and see it live, actually in the screens, you're seeing these customers interact directly with the plugins themselves inside of DocuSign, inside of Zoho, Data8, and 𝗦𝗲𝗀. They are just calling these connectors directly. The customer inside of M365 Chat simply has to turn on a toggle. And the work between Copilot Studio and M365 is doing all the hard work by going to get that information and retrieving it with the correct user credentials. So really, really powerful stuff when you think about the mosaic of SaaS ecosystems that exist in this room and in each organization. But we didn't just stop with the 4. I gave you a little preview there when I was clicking through that video. There's a few more we've added over the last little while, and if time permitting, we'll get to one of them at the end. But we've added the ability to append descriptions and actions into those connectors, those 1,000+ connectors, and you see that here in the Power Platform AI plugins. We've added a REST API, so for the folks that have been really asking for a pro-code solution inside of Copilot Studio, there's been a few different ways you could do that with Azure OpenAI. You're going to see a way that you can append a JSON directly into MCS, or Microsoft Copilot Studio today. And then there's obviously graph connectors. We wanted to make sure we did give a nod to those folks who have hosted their own connector inside of Microsoft 365. And we shared the ISV, or the partner community, and the plugins and the Copilot extensions that they've built over the last little while to connect to our shared customers. But there's also customers examples, and I did want to give a nod to Greco, who's up next, who have actually done a really interesting thing and have taken effectively a conversational AI plugin and have daisy-chained it together with a Power Automate flow. So you saw on that last screen what that looked like, which is effectively here, a Power Automate input inside of a conversational AI plugin that is then going to be used to trigger a Power Automate flow. And that Power Automate flow inside of it has a variety of call functions. And so you see here you've got analyzing a prompt inside of OpenAI Studio and even a JSON, which then they've made really seamless to the user. Again, super seamless end user experience. That plugin toggle turns on. The user doesn't know all of this different architecture is happening behind the scenes, and they can get the information that their developers believe that they need to run their business, or that that business user has been requesting. And it's as simple as toggling on or off to make it available to the user, end user, whether it's a conversational AI plugin, whether it's a Power Platform AI plugin, whether it's Power Automate Flow. All available starting in Microsoft Copilot Studio with the destination in Microsoft Copilot. So you want to do it live?
All right, let's try it.
All right. So here we are. We're at the home of Microsoft Copilot Studio. So if you haven't been in Microsoft Copilot Studio, you're seeing it live right now. We've got a few different experiences here. You can go ahead and see we've got the create function. I'm on my first page here with Copilots. I'm a heavy Microsoft user, so I've got my Copilot for Sales and Copilot for Dynamics in here. And then you've got the library function on the left. This is all the available extensions that Jeff and I and the teams back in Redmond have been creating over the past little while. A big shout out to everyone who's been working on this. So let's go ahead and add an extension to Microsoft Copilot. We're going to go here, and you can see that 4-box modal that we showed in the PowerPoint a little earlier. There's a few different examples here, right? We're going to go ahead and
let's make a prompt flow.
Build a prompt. I was going to say it's Jeff's choice today. We've had a few different examples this morning getting ready for today. And hopefully the Wi-Fi keeps us on deck. So we'll call this Jeff account. Why not?
So what is this prompt going to do?
So what we're going to try and do is we're actually going to go and test the ability for this prompt to get information from the Dataverse tables. And I would like it, because I'm on the product side, to give me some information around revenue, give me some information on the accounts, and maybe you have a few other ideas of things you might want to add to this. But let's go ahead and add the data first. So we're in the prompt experience. We're going to go ahead and add the data, which is if you're already having data stored inside of Dataverse, it's simply already available for you by default. Go ahead and click the account table. And we're going to say get, let's say use the following information when answering. And what did we say? We're going to use account name. That's simple. That's always good to have. What else did you want in here, Jeff?
I actually don't know about sales. I'm a developer, so you pick. Dealer's choice.
Okay, so I'll pick. We'll go revenue. I'm a money guy, so let's do that. And since I've been wondering what the Fed's going to do, let's go ahead and do credit as well. All right, so we'll go grab credit limit and see if that's in there. And so inside of this is an inline experience of building a prompt for Jeff. And instead of going out somewhere else, all this is happening inside of Copilot Studio. And we can test this
Before
inline.
you test it,
yeah,
it says answer in friendly. Did you miss something there?
It probably would have picked that up for me, but answer in a friendly tone.
All right, sounds good.
Beautiful thing about these LLMs is they'll fill in a lot of the gaps for us. Let's go ahead and test this. And while we're testing it, do you want to explain a little bit of what's happening behind the scenes that this call is being made?
Yeah, sure. As Mike described, what this prompt is actually doing is it's first going to get information from Dataverse. And if you're not familiar with Dataverse, it's essentially, sorry Dataverse people, a very large database. And so you can think of it as a bunch of SQL tables and that sort of thing. And so what this piece of technology is doing is it's taking that prompt and it's deciding what is the SQL that I need to run on behalf of this particular prompt in order to get data to answer this particular question. So you can think of it as a series of actions. First, we take that prompt, we turn it into SQL, we execute it against Dataverse, we get that information back, and then we feed it back into a large language model in order to get the response. And do we get a response?
We did. Well, this very large database, performant, exceptional piece of technology called Dataverse, spat back this prompt response with individual information from the account name, the account revenue, and if there was a credit limit. And what's really cool here is that it actually provided the link as well. So if you're someone that maybe is a little bit skeptical, perhaps, of the LLM hallucinating or providing the wrong information, you can go ahead and take that link. And what you're going to see here is it's actually going to redirect you to the CRM that it's pulling the information from. So you can go ahead and validate that information if your field users or your end users are perhaps wanting to make sure that the information that's being presented to them is correct. And you can see here that we've got annual revenue of $100,000 and about 9,500 employees, which ties out to our $100,000 for Fourth Coffee. So really, really cool to see a prompt come to life just in natural language, inline testing, and pulling from data directly stored inside of the Power Platform.
And there's some other cool options here, right? Like, can't you change the model and stuff like that?
So you can go ahead and flip the model if you want. So right now we're at 3.5. You could go ahead and run it in 4. You can change the temperature. We call it effectively the predictability or the socialization of the model itself and how accurate or how creative you might like to be. And you can spend as much time as you want going ahead and adjusting parameters here. You can even sideload it if you would want to, or you could go ahead and directly publish it yourself.
Cool. So you made this particular extension. What do these things look like inside Microsoft Copilot?
OK, so let's get out of Copilot Studio here, and let's go into the Microsoft Copilot. So if you haven't seen Microsoft Copilot, quiz everyone that logo that we talked about. Yeah, there it is again. So this is the Microsoft Copilot. We're inside of the Copilot, inside of Teams, actually, you see here. And we talked a little bit about the flyout. And so what you've got here is you've got these zero query prompts at the top. And I've got my little plugin experience here on the right. And you can see that for me, as a heavy Microsoft user, I've got a variety of different plugins that I've already installed and are running directly in my flyout.
So what are those little connect links that I see up there? I guess they're a little bigger up there, but what are those?
And these are, so you have your toggle for anything that I've already authenticated into or is on by default. So you see web content. My administrator said we're going to leave web content on by default. Any of these things can be tuned or turned on or off by the administrator. So ultimately, your Microsoft administrator has a high degree of control here should they need to. But the connect gesture is really a great opportunity for you as a developer group in your organization to provide plugins or Copilot extensions to your end user, even if they didn't build them. So the ones that you see that have a connect gesture in them are Copilot extensions that have been shared with me that I didn't create and that I need to authenticate to get into or to use.
And so does that mean if we have an extension that maybe somebody built for us and you click on that connect button and you are interacting with Copilot and that extension is accessing like an Azure service or GitHub or SharePoint or something like that, that it's going to give you data that you have access to. But if I sign in with the connect button in my Copilot experience, I'm going to get different data. Is that right?
That's right. It's effectively tied to your authentication.
OK.
Is that important for you?
I think that's important to everybody.
OK, fair enough. So what we've got here is we've got a variety of different plugins that have been created. And you can see there's some from our partner community that are in here.
What is that one that you have on?
My repositories. OK, so this is effectively a custom connector that I had created that goes into using the existing certified GitHub connector. I modified some actions into that basic connector to make it effectively one of our Power Platform AI plugins that we saw a little bit earlier. And I turned it on because I was using it to just check on some of my repos.
All right, can we try it? I think they want to see you try it.
List all of my repositories.
All right, so what's happening while this thing is running is Copilot took that particular extension. It's actually looking through a catalog of all kinds of different actions, things that are enabled, innate capabilities, and that sort of thing. It gave an answer, so yay. Good job. Give me one of those.
Oh, geez, sweating. So,
all right. Let me finish. Sorry,
go.
So Copilot went, it looked at that prompt. It said, hey, here's a bunch of actions that I could particularly execute. It decided on the one. It went through that connector using your credential and called GitHub and gave you some data back.
Yeah. And to Jeff's point, what we've also added into the Copilot experience is the ability to debug. And so what you would have seen here, if this thing would have had a little bit of trouble, which sometimes these things do, is you actually can see the enabled plugins, the matched functions, what was selected, and what was executed. And so oftentimes, when you're going to have a lot of different plugins running, you may have some conflict, or you may have plugins that get called in certain times, or you want to understand why it called this plugin or that plugin, especially if you're a developer. And so having this ability to kind of debug on the fly is a massive step forward and obviously a huge tailwind for making sure that we are giving our enterprise workers the best experience possible.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting, with this developer, mode. And I don't know if you all know how to turn that on. Maybe you could show them real quick while I'm talking. But kind of one of the interesting things about building these extensions is that, it's so easy to make these extensions. Like you saw Mike make that prompt extension, and it took, 90 seconds to make that thing. And so the data integration and the user experience here, are already done for you. And so some of that work shifts into what kind of descriptions do I need to put into those actions, and how do I tune that? And that's where spending your time on that, using developer tools like this to kind of know, ooh, that didn't work with this set of prompts, but it did with these. You're probably going to be spending more time there, and we're definitely going to be investing in more and more tools to make it easy for you to know why your extensions work and maybe don't work sometimes.
Absolutely. And so the second piece that's really important for us is we got through that live demo. You got to see a prompt plugin working. You got to see a conversational AI plugin that had a flow inside of it. You got to see us call a GitHub custom connector that was just made a few minutes ago. Is that Copilot Studio really is the home for extensibility. And so as you think about how you can or where you want to extend your Copilot, or where you see opportunities to make the Microsoft Copilot do more in your organization, really strongly suggest you start with Copilot Studio. You want to take us through a little bit of what's happening behind the scenes? You mentioned authentication earlier, a little bit about where we go next and how that all works.
Always behind the scenes. That's right. OK, so we're going to talk about a couple different topics here, so you get a little bit better understanding of kind of what's going on with all of these extensions. And the first thing that I want to go through is the publishing. So you saw Mike. He was over in Copilot Studio. What we didn't quite see, but was right there, is it's very easy to actually publish these extensions. You just click on a button, and you've published it. And what happens there is we send some metadata, similar to that JSON file we saw earlier, over to the team's app catalog. And Copilot, that's where your end users end up finding that particular extension. So pretty easy so far. But it turns out that team's app catalog, there's a little bit more to it, because there's a couple different things that happen between the team's app catalog and all of our great connectors and our ecosystem over in Power Platform. We have another service that internally we call the Discovery service. And there's different caches of information that are available in each of these services. So up in the team's app catalog, you have this nice multi-tenant view of all the different extensions and what they do here or there. And inside Power Platform, for the Discovery service, we actually have a cache of which one of those extensions are actually accessible by every individual user in all of those tenants. And so multiple services know about these particular extensions. And it turns out that the #1 problem in computing and computer science is
naming.
Naming, that's right. And the second most difficult problem in computer science I've heard, I could probably call on this guy, Boz over here, but we're going to go with, it's actually cache invalidation. It's a really tricky problem, and so we kind of invented this mechanism that we call the shoulder tap or the eye poke or whatever, where when Copilot Studio goes to publish these extensions, we are actually broadcasting that to multiple services so that at the tenant level, we know, hey, this extension's been updated, and within the Power Platform ecosystem, we also know, hey, we need to invalidate those per user caches, make everything available for users and on that service as well. So that's a little bit about publishing. So now we're going to go through and we're going to talk about sharing and authentication. And really with sharing and authentication, your permissioning model, there's a couple different kind of, I'll say, personalities who care about this, and a different set of permissions that you have to think about when you're building and interacting with extensions. And the first one is a developer. So we saw Mike inside Copilot Studio. He's building Copilot extensions. It's accruing to basically the source code of the extensions, and that needs to be secure. So we have access to the source code. The second person is the admin. So Microsoft Copilot is like the biggest, most straightforward data and action integrator piece of technology the world has ever seen. It is so easy to bring things together. And with that comes quite an interesting governance and security burden. And so the admin has a role to make sure who actually is having access to these different extensions. Do I want Mike and Mike's team to be able to use that Copilot for Sales extension or not? And then the third set of permissions are our Copilot users. So as we saw, kind of individual users interacting with Copilot, each using their own user token, their own permissioning, to get access to only the data that they have access to. And so this keep Microsoft Copilot secure. So let's take a look at kind of where each of those permissioning models come into play. So again, we're going to start in Copilot Studio with a developer who has made this fun-looking green gear, and that's our Copilot extension. Well, within the Power Platform, those little extensions exist in something called an environment. And so for those of you who are experienced developers, you often have a variety of different environments. You build something in a developer environment. You might have a test or integration environment. You might have a production environment. And there might be different extensions that live in each of these different environments. And so Power Platform gives you all of that great flexibility of making all these different environments. And what's awesome about Power Platform is each one of those environments, as well as each one of the things inside those environments, can be individually permissioned. And so this is where those developer permissions come into play. So Mike might be working on a very top secret extension that's for a select group of people in his organization, and I wouldn't know about it. And that's just fine. So next, when we hit publish, and we see again the extensions kind of flowing through the Discovery service and letting the team's app catalog know about those things, you start to get into the admin permissions. And they get to use different experiences, both in Copilot Studio and the Microsoft Admin Center, to say, hey, do I want to enable this particular tenant to have access to Copilot for Sales or not? Or the list repositories extension. And so that kind of gives them kind of this governance view of which extensions are going to be allowed to mix together. But also they can go kind of down even further in Copilot Studio and say, within that tenant, only this group or these users have access to that particular extension. So pretty powerful stuff there too. And then that last group, the people who are actually interacting and using Copilot, that's actually going to say, when I say, hey, go get my GitHub repositories, and I have the little gear call out to a service. In this case, we have DocuSign up there, Zoho, if they're calling a Microsoft Azure service. It's doing that on behalf of me, the signed-in user. And so that makes sure that Copilot is only reasoning about data that I have access to as a user, and I don't have to worry about data that might be leaked. All right. You want to talk about partner?
I'll talk about the why. So you saw a great example there from Jeff on all the things that are happening behind the scenes that are making sure the information that's being moved through these different surfaces is secure and authenticated. And so if you're in the room and you're thinking, well, why should I certify my connectors and my plugins and make them Copilot extensions? That's a question that we really spent a lot of time on to make sure that we had the right ecosystem in place. And there's a few things that I would encourage you to think about if you're a software vendor and you're looking to reach out and leverage effectively the scale of Microsoft. The first is we are continuing to see more and more adoption of the Microsoft Copilot, and our shared customers are using that as the home of modern work. It's a great opportunity for you to allow your technology to reach them with that simple toggle you saw from some of our other partners that are there already. It's extremely low friction. We've created now pipes into Microsoft Partner Center. Many of you have used that solution before to certify other things inside of the Microsoft ecosystem. And so this low friction setup can be done in a matter of hours, with certification happening in a matter of days. And this also ensures that you represent your brand in the best way possible. Many of the customers of Microsoft are looking for ways to connect to your individual SaaS application or your business, ensuring that you are the one that is building that plugin, that Copilot extension, and adding the most robust actions possible to the set of capabilities that can really extend the Microsoft Copilot is ultimately critical. And know that you are not alone. We have been on a massive journey with our partner ecosystem, and it has grown and will continue to grow. And so the other call to action I would have for this group here is that if you haven't started on this journey with certifying Copilot extensions, to please take a look at that QR code. It'll be on the next slide as well, so that you can ensure that you are able to make sure that your software is available to our shared Microsoft customers. But what about that REST API? I wouldn't get off the stage if I didn't show you something a little new that you will be seeing very soon. So we talked about that 4-box modal that had flows, conversational AI plugins, the connectors, and the prompts inside of it. Well, there's a 5th one coming, and you will see it here very shortly, and that's the REST API plugin. And so what you have here is a very quick example of what it looks like to actually go ahead and create a REST API inside of Microsoft Copilot Studio. You're going to add that same action. You notice that little modal on the top left. You've got an individual JSON file that's been created on the side. It's as simple as a drag and drop. You're going to drop that directly into Copilot Studio. You see the authentication and some of the actions. Again, very familiar experience by design. You can then export that solution out of Copilot Studio into Microsoft Copilot, load it up with a couple clicks. There's that added successfully. And again, familiar pattern for the users. You're going to go into the plugin and experience in that flyout. You're going to toggle on, and they're going to be able to interact with that REST API directly in chat. Super slick experience, now going pro code, low code, and everything in between, all happening inside of Copilot Studio. And so as you walk out of here and you spend a bit of time throughout the rest of the week and build, we're really excited that you spent some time with us. There's a couple things we're going to ask you to keep in mind. Your AI strategy is anchored in your data strategy. Copilot Studio is the home of Copilot Extensibility. And that whether you plan to build in clicks or code, we really do encourage that your journey starts today. Thank you so much for spending your time with us.